Welcome to the Branding Boardroom, the podcast where we discuss brand strategy and how it should be understood, formulated, and implemented by senior corporate decision makers. Our guests range from prominent CEOs to accomplished academics and thought leaders. But there's so much more. They're also interesting people. And on the show, you'll get to learn about their stories and about the advice that they give to the world's top companies. My name is Ivo Ganchev. I'm your host and a senior executive at Top Brand Union, a Chinese consultancy which publishes influential ranking tables in the branding industry. We also organize the annual China Brand Festival, and this year it's taking place right here in Changsha, where our secretariat is located. Now follow me into the Branding Boardroom. Dr. Francesca Hansstein is an accomplished academic and consumer behavior consultant. Dr. Hansstein has over a decade of experience conducting high-level research at numerous institutions, having taught at the Shanghai University of Finance and Economics and at Xi'an Jiaotong Liverpool University. She's a respected authority on Chinese consumer preferences. Dr. Hansstein has led executive-level courses on various corporate programs such as the Siemens EMBA International Leadership and Finance Program. She has also served as a co-principal investigator and coordinator for several food consumption projects in Shanghai. Her academic articles have appeared in influential journals such as Micro and Macro Marketing, Globalization and Health, and the Journal of Cleaner Production. Dr. Hansstein is the author of an upcoming book which seeks to help Italian and European companies better understand Chinese consumers. Her new book is eagerly anticipated among the branding and marketing community. Welcome to the Branding Boardroom, Francesca. Your career has been full of diverse experiences spanning across academia and industry, where you've explored consumer behavior from a wide variety of perspectives. But before we dive deep into your current work and expertise, let's begin by talking a little bit about your early experiences. What was the beginning of your career like, and how did you become interested in consumer behavior?
First of all, thank you, Ivo, for the invitation. This podcast. So let me start from the last question. So how I became interested in consumer behavior. I think it dates back to my childhood because I was exposed to different environments. So I could observe and realize how people behave differently according to many factors. So I traveled in many cities and few countries when I was little. So I was exposed also to different economic environments. And I was fascinated by it, by seeing all the different behaviors of people, even people that grew up in the same environment. So it was quite fascinating. But I mean, it was of course, when I studied my master's thesis and also when I started my PhD, that I could understand a little bit more about about this interest. And at that time, I started studying consumer behavioring models. I was interested in food behaviors at the very beginning. So I was doing a master thesis, actually using some data, quantitative data, perceptions of food traceability, which was a big topic. I realized how many models were there about behaving and consumer behavior, how many factors were involved, from social demographics, environment, economics. So it was very fascinating, and also tried to build some model myself and also to adjust or adding some variables here there to existing models. And the big question is also, do we behave in a certain way because of nature? So is genetics, or is more like the environmental condition? Probably, of course, a good mix of them for sure. So yes, this was my first, the way I got interested in consumer behavior, reading a lot also about how attitudes formation, perception toward things, how it change habits, also the other big, how it's difficult and what are the triggers that cause behavioral changes, and yes, all these aspects. So I was very fascinated by it. It was a genuine, pure interest because I really like to observe like different people and different behaviors, and it's an interesting journey, I would say.
So you mentioned your genuine curiosity and you've had this great academic background, but you're currently also the market research director for Interactive Market Research, which is an Italian company. And as the name of the company suggests, this sounds like a great place to put your academic skills in practice. So could you tell us a little bit more about the company and about the types of projects that you work on there?
Yes, of course. Yes, as you said, in January I transitioned career. From the academia to the private sector, and particularly I'm working in the market research industry, which I think is a perfect fit for my skills, for the academic skills I have. I think there is no other job I could do right now. And so my company is a small Italian company. We are about like 20 people, but we work with, with several brands, some big, I would say some big names. We work on different kind of products. We do research in different sectors, like from electronics, appliances, food and beverages, healthcare, the travel industry. So really the expertise is quite wide, I would say. And we are local but with a global mindset. In fact, we have not just Italian clients but also few international big clients. Actually, a Chinese company that we are big company that we have a strong relationship with them. We conducted several researches for them in these last years, and I can also tell you that one of the features of the main features of my company is the flexibility. I think usually coming from the academia. I studied also, and from a business school, I studied and read a lot about how business works and about leadership theories or management theories. And just to make an example, for example, one of the theory of leadership, that there's the three skills leadership, where usually companies should combine like three different kinds of skills, like from human, conceptual, and technical. And usually senior people are very good at conceptual skills, like entry level junior people are more like you expect like to be technical skills, especially the young people that know like many new tools better than others. And mid senior level, they should be good like human and but of course not, and others, but mainly this one. But I would say that one of the main distinctive character of my company is that we do everything basically. So every people in the company is responsible in a certain point, and also when following a special aspect of these various aspects. So it is very challenging at times, but also it's also very interesting because you work with different people, you exchange, you learn new things anytime, and really like from top to bottom. So I think it's great. It is something that I really like about it.
It sounds like a very rewarding experience. And you mentioned that you work on a lot of research projects, that you have a global mindset and provide services to a variety of companies. So I'm sure that you use a lot of different methods in your work. So perhaps you might use quantitative or qualitative methods or some more specific methods as well. Would you share a little bit with our audience about the types of methods that you prefer to use for practical purposes, and perhaps weigh some of the strengths and weaknesses of the different methods that you use in your work?
So yes, as a market research company, we are specialized in online surveys, but so this was the beginning of the company. Especially at the beginning, they were very active in these type of surveys when they were starting, to be used a lot also by marketers. But we use both like quality and quantitative research, and I think, and this also is it true for the academia, for some study I conducted during my research, I use like a mixed method research approaches. So a combination of quali and quanti and quantitative methods. I think this combination would be, I think, is the most complete. Of course, the quanti using quantitative data has the advantage that you can generalize the results as long as the sampling has been random. But of course, you can really collect a lot of data, many data. You have the possibility to market, to conduct like segmentation and identify different targets. But at the same time, you do not go in depth, as instead you do the quality research, because the quality research you can focus on few people and really try to understand them in a more like with more attention. You understand how they think. What are the preferences, what are the attitudes, so you can really go in depth. So usually one of the way we could proceed is to start from a quantity research to have a broader, vision of the situation of a given project. And then, for the most, based on the insights we obtain from the quantity research, we conduct, some qualitative studies like focus groups, in-depth interviews or other methods like that to better understand how people think. So a combination would be ideal. So for the quantity, we usually use like the traditional survey methods. So the UNA, user engine attitude surveys, just to make an example, and then of course with the data elaboration, a little bit more sophisticated analysis like clustering to identify like different targets. And also for the quantity, it's ethnographic studies, in-home interviews, focus groups. So there are plenty of tools. So since I arrived in January, I've been worked on several projects, and I think I had the chance to see a good range of projects. Another method that I am, or like field I'm exploring right now is the UX research, the user experience research. So I think this is also very interesting. Also thinking about like the future projects, and basically the goal is to understand how people interact with an app, application of the phone, or with a website, whether they can complete a task like from the beginning to the end, if there is any roadblocks. So I think this is very fascinating because it allows to work with website or app developers and designers. So it's really cool. This field of research, and they want like A/B testing or usability studies are two of the methods that are most commonly used.
That's a great overview for our audience, and I believe that there's going to be a lot of takeaways there for them, especially if they're exploring different possibilities for research methods. But of course, so far we've spoken about research methods at the conceptual level, and when we think about companies and the way that they put research in practice, we also have to think about the extent to which they should rely on it or the types of decisions that it could help them make. So from a practical perspective, what would your take be on some of these things, and who do you think should be reading this research, and how should they take it into account when it comes to company management or product strategy at a more practical level?
Of course. So usually, let me explain the process that maybe can help, I think, to better understand how it works. So usually it works like this, like someone, depending on the size of the company, can be like just the CEO in the case of a small company, or maybe like the marketing director or the brand director or the pricing director. They come to us with a research question. So they want to know something about a product. Like, for example, what is the best? I have like three communications. Which one works best? Which one is more convincing for consumers, let's say? If a company wants to launch a new product, they come to us and say, so is this product good as it is? Should we improve it? The technical features are okay. So they come with a general question. So the very first work we do, and what I learned in this month is a critical part, is to understand what they want and to translate the question into a project, into a proposal, a completed proposal where you understand the objective, you try to, you develop you identify the target, identify the methodology you're gonna use, and you try to be as specific as possible, as much as specific as possible, even at the proposal stage, and then the time and investment. And this sometimes also requires some back and forth with the client just to really understand what they want from you, and so you come up with a proposal. And if then it might get approved or not, based, of course, on the time and investing. This is usually the investment. This is usually the biggest, most important part. We start the field work, usually, that can be quality or quantity or both, depending. So the time also, one thing that I learned in market research, the timing is very strict, also comparing to the academia. So some projects you have to finish within 1-2 weeks, and so fast-paced, really, especially when we work with a Chinese company, I have to say. But this is the way it is, and it's very exciting. So we present the results, and of course we make sure that all the process is clearly understood in all the steps. And the other thing is that, of course, based on the type of company that approach us, we can scale somehow let's say the complexity of the method we are going to propose them. It depends, and of course there is a lot of flexibility from our. Did I answer to your question?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's also a great overview of the process as well, in case, for example, somebody is just getting started and trying to understand how they should navigate this space. So these companies that you work with, of course, they're of different sizes and they operate on a different scale. But when you think about the way that they allocate resources, how much resources, how much time, money, human resources do you think a company should allocate to this type of market research? And of course, it might be difficult to specify numbers here, but if you think about, let's say, percentage of revenue or part of their budget, what advice would you give to companies?
It depends on many factors. Of course, it depends on I think mainly on the company sector. And of course, there is not a unique answer. It also depends on the macroeconomic conditions, on the strategy, overall strategy of the company. But just to give you, an idea, there are some companies, especially, for example, those that work in healthcare, and some of them, of course, they are required by law to conduct, for example, clinical trials. And in this case, I think at least 20% of the budget or so, on average, because you have to do clinical trials. Of course, you're in healthcare. I think the budget could be quite high for companies working in innovation technology, where you really want to understand that your innovation or the innovation you are launching on the market is valuable for your target. And so you might want to conduct some preliminary research to understand better or to define better, not just the technology, but also the way you communicate the technology. Then another sector could be in the sector of fast-moving consumer goods, where the competition is very high. I think it's also important, 5 to 50% maybe, something like this, depending on the market conditions, depending on the competition, on the specific product you're going to test. And then, of course, I also think that of course, the budget obviously varies from year to year, but if a company is launching new products or wants to enter new market, in this case, the budget could be higher at the beginning. We got approached from a Chinese company who is launching some product in the European markets. And of course, in this case, you really want to understand, because maybe there are many biases, and so you have cultural bias that affect the perception of the market of other countries. So it's very important to do some research in this sense. Also, of course, the other way around, there are some famous examples I can think about. A few years ago, the Dolce & Gabbana brand, the Italian brand, made a mistake in communicating with the Chinese market, with a terrible effect on the brand reputation. So just because of a little bit of superficiality when approaching the market. So you really, in this case, I think market research is paramount.
Yeah, these cases of miscommunication really exemplify the importance of market research and the way that it actually comes into play in practice. And when companies decide to dedicate a certain amount of resources and they then move on to the stage of deciding whether to outsource the task of market research to a company like yours, perhaps, or to hire people specifically, or to build an in-house team and do that. What would you say are the type of situations where one would be better than the other, and how would you think about this question in order to produce a better outcome for different types of companies?
Yes, this is a very good question. Actually, some companies have their in-house research team, but still they outsource some researches. So from my experience, big companies follow like an hybrid approach. Small companies are more likely to outsource, of course, because they don't have the internal resources. But if you want, to give you like a more comprehensive answer, there are, some pros and cons of each of the approach. So the advantages of having an in-house research team is that people within the company have a deep understanding of the products, of the features, so they know of the goals of the company, so they know exactly what the senior executives want, and so it can be easier and faster for them understand the goal of the research and the framework and putting it down. Some of the cons, some of the disadvantages is that overall having a research team, it might be expensive, also because consider that market research is not something that you need all the year around. There are some periods that maybe you need to conduct some research, so it depends on the projects you have. So it might be costly if you have to hire an entire research team. The other thing is that there might be a potential bias. Just exactly because the people are within the company, they maybe favor the results, or they might be biased. For them, some things of their product is obvious. They know the brand very, very well because it's the brand they work for. So this might affect the results on the way they write the questionnaires, the way they conduct the study, they interpret the results. So the bias is there. On the other side, outsourcing the research, so asking an external market research company is asked to conduct the research, has the advantage of being cost effective for the reasons I told before. So you're just paying for the project, you're not in charge of hiring the people of the company, so you just make that investment, and this is under control, quite often under control. Then of course you have the guarantee that the people you're working with have the expertise you need because this is what they do, like from morning to evening, every day. So they are very, very much experienced in this. They work with different methodologies. They work maybe with the competitors. So in this case, they have a broad vision, a broad spectrum of the overall situation. And in market research, often you can find a lot of flexibility. So if you have to adjust the deadlines, adjust the budget, or adjust the goal, changing a question, adding a question, if you have other people that are doing this, it's easier. I can make you an example. When we work for a client, it's very common that further requests arise while the study is ongoing. So we quickly need to adjust, we need to change something on the spot. And you have to have the right skills, and the persons with the right skills and the flexibility to do that. So, okay, so this is our job, so we are used to it. And yes. Maybe on the other side, the cons of outsourcing the research could be in some cases a limited control on the company, but I can tell you that, for example, as happened for us, we have with many clients we have a long-term relationship, so we have been working for them for years. I just started, but I know there are clients that they keep on coming, so you kind of build a personal relationship with them, and so you try to communicate well with the client, and you know what they want. So overall, I think, and so these are the general pros and cons of the two aspects. Then, of course, the decision from the company side, it depends on many factors, like, of course, the budget, the time, the flexibility, that there are many, many factors, the macroeconomic conditions, and convenience, practical convenience also. Sometimes it's easy to test a product within the company, if a big company, among the employees. But of course, it's a little bit, if you're super in a hurry. But of course, the results might be not so objective, of course.
A lot of this makes very good sense, especially if you think about it from the perspective of the client, from the perspective of the company. But when you think about it from the other side, from your perspective, or from the perspective of a market research team that might also be in-house as well, what are some things that they could do to improve the likelihood that their research will actually feed into the decision making of the company? We all know that research reports can contain a lot of technical language. We've all seen big companies sometimes fail to take into account certain rather basic features of local markets. So how can you actually make sure that the decision makers read carefully what you tell them and actually take it into account?
So first of all, let me start going back to the beginning of the project. The research question they give you at the beginning is very important, because it has to be very clear. You really have to understand what they want. And the other thing is that usually they are knowledgeable of course, they know about market research, marketing techniques. So they understand the data, they understand the results. And what we usually do is that also when the research is ongoing, we keep on communicating with the clients, and we do like a midterm or sometimes the final presentation with the report, which of course we deliver them some documents with the results, but we also present the results to them during a conference call usually. And this is a key part, because all the doubts, all the questions, all the things that are not clear, we explain them, and we want to make sure that everything is clear and that we arrive with a clear answer. The other things that I might want to say is that sometimes it happens that there is not like a clear-cut direction. For example, which influencer is better at sponsoring this product? Maybe we identify 2 influencers. So in the end, the decision might be also up to the client. So we give directions, of course, suggesting what could be like the best marketing strategies or the best directions or what they should improve. But these are just very general suggestions. I can make you an example. A few months ago, we were asked, hearing aid company asked us to test like 3 different communications in a European market. And these communications were quite different from the other. One was like, there was like a doctor sponsoring putting her face on the advertising, encouraging people to conduct a hearing test. Another one was like more based on a peer effect. So there was like these elderly people telling him experience. And the other one was just a general communication. So our results actually indicated that the winning communication was the one with the peer effect. But then the company decided to went with with another one that was not. I mean, the results were not so terrible, of course, but was not like, according to our results at least, the winning communication, the most effective communication. But they decided to go with the middle one that show a doctor presenting the approaches. Why this happened? This happened because of the brand, if our results impact the brand image or the brand reputation too much, and the senior executives thinks that maybe this is not the case, they might of course decide to take another direction. So this is something that can regularly happen. Another very interesting thing is that some companies asked us, on the basis of the results, to give them directions. So what should we do? What is the best strategy to go? Other companies, they do not want absolutely hear that. We just give them the results. And their marketing team will decide what to do based on the results. So this is the idea. I hope I give you an answer to explain the situation.
This is really a very, very useful way of putting it together. And you've spoken a lot about the types of experiences you have in your work, and you're clearly very, very knowledgeable about the industry. But as we know, you've also had a fantastic list of personal achievements, and you've had a great career so far. So to some of our listeners who are trying to go to that next level and who are trying to further their professional development, let's talk a little bit about the factors that you think have led you to have this successful career. What do you think are some of the things that made you be so successful?
Well, thank you for this question. So I just transitioned like from one job, from one sector to the other, which was very challenging. And I consider myself in the process of building a career. But what I think helped me a lot during these years I try to keep my mind as open as possible in terms of new opportunities, of new skills I could learn. Always, try to be open to learn new things. I think, I'm a strong supporter of ongoing and continuing education. So whenever I can, I try to learn something new. It can be a skill, a software, and this is also, a personal approach to life. And probably, of course, as I said at the beginning, another factors that I think helped me a lot was that I was exposed to different cultural backgrounds since I was a child. So. And also, the fact that I lived in China, in the States, in Europe. So in these particular historical moments, of course, it changed my perspective. So I would, maybe, it's quite common, not always I've seen it here in Italy, not maybe these days, especially after the pandemic, although now everything is kind of becoming to the normal, is to go to another culture and experience, try to build your skills and your working skills in another cultural context. This is, I think, it's gorgeous, and yes, this is one very important aspect. The other thing is that maybe twice a year, or maybe at least twice a year, try to get out from your comfort zone. And we all know what are our limits, what are our fears. Put sometimes yourself, get out from your comfort zone. And this could be done, I think, in a very different way, like professionally, sign up for that conference, do a public speaking, try to, or candidate yourself for that committee, sign up to the theater class, I don't know. I think each one of us has his own, yes, you know what I mean. So I think this might be helpful, and of course try to learn from other people, yes, from your colleagues, young or older than you. So I think the intergenerational communication is very important, especially, I have to say, in Italy, I have to admit, as in many other cultures, sometimes there is a little bit of, there is a paternalistic culture. So this is something that, of course, it's a limit sometimes. So it's very important to listen to young people, yes, because we can really learn a lot from different generations, and without thinking, okay, we know everything. I've been through there, This is the typical phrase you hear, sometimes from elderly people. At least, this is very true in Italy, maybe less in other contexts. But So yes, this is something that should be challenged.
You spoke about the importance of going through different experiences in different countries and cultures. You also spoke about the intergenerational gap. And when you think about these things from a personal perspective, of course, they help you grow in terms of your mindset. But when you think about them also from a market perspective, are there any similarities or differences that you've observed across consumers that come from different cultures or in different markets? Or are there any notable differences perhaps between market segments from different generations or different cultures as well?
Absolutely, yes. And I studied a lot Chinese consumers, and there are huge differences. I experienced them myself at first hand. You lived in China, so you know what it means, like experiencing that kind of development, economic development. Especially, I was there. I went China when I arrived to China 10 years ago, so 2013, and the very first year it was like living in a lab, so of course you're surrounded by different trends and different cultures. So I say, wow. And so at that time, actually, also my interest in consumer behavior really exploded because it was fantastic. And I've seen like people changing from one year to the other, changing their taste, changing their preferences. And this is very interesting also because try to understand what are the factors that drive like these big and sudden changes. I think it amazed me. I think that if we look like at intergenerations, so like same generations within country and within also different cultures, we might also find some similarities. Of course, I mean, everything young people is all about like the video cultures and fast cultures, like in instant gratification, we have that. But it's not just, the young generation, like those born, for me, young, like those born like 2000, but also after that, I can see also in children, like this behavior of instant gratifications and the video cultures and the digital transformation. So yes, probably there are some similarities across like the young generation within countries. But also, the same generation change a lot. I mean, from year to year, everywhere right now, because our changes are driven like by all the artificial intelligence and innovations that we are surrounded by that affect like our tastes, the way we perceive colors, the way we perceive like, our surrounding, what we consider beautiful and what we consider ugly or what we don't like, order and disorder. So because of course we now can algorithms are used to define what is the best combinations of colors, what is the best combination of clothes, and so it changes very fast, sometimes too fast.
These are fascinating observations, and there are definitely things to pay attention to as well. And you mentioned, of course, your time here in China, and we have a large following in Beijing and other Chinese cities as well. So I'm sure that our audience is very curious. What made you come to China in the first place? And what was your experience like? What types of things did you do here? And how do you look back on it retrospectively?
So China for me was a big change. I would say there is a before and after China. So to be honest, I arrived in China because of work and of personal reasons. So it was sudden decisions that was taking within like few months, and so I started work. I arrived in Shanghai, and of course I was very curious at the beginning. But although of course at the beginning there is a huge cultural shock, there was. I worked in the academia, the Shanghai University of Finance and Economics for a few years, like for 6 years in Shanghai. And then I also lived in Suzhou for, unfortunately, a few months, because then the COVID arrived and I got stuck in Italy. I've been working with the with the Xianjiaotong Liverpool University until last July, it's July 2002. I think about China every single day and about my life in China. Of course, it was, I learned a lot from my students, I have to say. I had many students coming from different parts of China, from different backgrounds, from different cultures. I also had many international students. And I learned a lot from them. I think I will always be thankful to them for what they taught me, probably without knowing about China, their approach. But also, I feel very lucky because living and experiencing living in a countries that grow with this GDP is a unique experience, I think, in life, because everything, changes so fast. You can see people changing their social status very fast, and they're optimistic about the future. But then, this was about 10 years ago, I would say. Then I know things changed a little bit, but still, I learned a lot about Asia and China, and I hope to come back. Maybe I'm not sure to live right now. Also for personal logistic issues, family issues. But China, yes, I want to keep this contact, this fil rouge with that amazing country, that has been home for more than 7 years, and this is the place also where my children were born. So it's a special attachment. Also, I studied Chinese, and I loved the language and everything, yes.
What a transformative experience. And it's very interesting to actually hear how China shaped and reshaped you over time, and how the things that you did here actually had an impact on perhaps the way you think about certain things. But of course, you are making an impact on the world as well. And a large part of it is through your research and through your publications. You've written many different types of publications. Some of them are non-academic, such as articles for magazines or newspapers, and some of them are, of course, academic and much more rigorous in their approach, and much sort of heavier, I would say, in terms of the type of reading that they are. But overall, when you think about the types of publications that you're putting out, what are the aims behind them? What's your target audience here? What are you aiming to achieve through these publications? And sort of who's your target here?
Yes, of course. So first of all, regarding my question before, I got very emotional when I talk about China, I have to say, because I still miss China a lot. I hope to visit it soon. But so this is what so just a little note about the question before. So now, regarding my publications, of course, so from an academic perspective, there is a certain approach you have to follow when you write an academic article. That this is you're doing research. So you have you make an hypothesis, a research hypothesis, that usually is supported with a strong theoretical framework. And then you try to validate that hypothesis, or maybe not validate it with data, with research data. So in this case, I try, the goal of academic publications is to add a little piece of knowledge to the ocean of, especially in social sciences, of the things we know. And so to help other researchers, because then you receive citations, you got cited, and you try to build up a certain knowledge over a topic, like, for example, electronic waste. I wrote about electronic waste or collaborative consumption. So electronic waste in the sense of recycling behavior. Sorry, just let me specify this. So always topics that are consumer related, of course, or consumption related. So yes, this is the idea, and I like writing academic publications because there is a sort of order you have in mind, and scientific order that from the beginning, it's a process. It's really a research process. from the beginning to the end. So you start, you write the hypothesis, you look at the data, you analyze the data, and then you draw the conclusions. Did you confirm the hypothesis or not? Should you review something, and so on. So these are the academic publications. The other publications, it depends. You know, I'm of course you cannot, even when you write to a general public as a foreigner, but my mindset is like the mindset of a researcher. Also for the job I still do, you cannot really give up to a research approach. So you want to support your ideas with data, with with research, with opinions, with facts that support your opinion. And you try to build a story that, of course, makes sense and that can offer maybe a different perspective. And usually I do just to build the knowledge over a certain topic, like in the case of Chinese consumers, or other types of consumers. So of course the audience is broader. I try to maybe not to be too technical when explaining the results, and yes. So also in the academia you say that when you have your research question or your results, if you are able to explain it to your granny, to your grandmother, then it's okay. Or to a child also, or to a child, it works. It means that you are communicating in the right way. And sometimes this is also an exercise, not because, of course, this is a bias we have, because clarity in communication is key. Otherwise, there is miscommunication, but this is through the other side, especially if I have another person talking about something that I don't know anything about. Of course, I expect, it would be great if I can understand it in plain way, So it's clear. It's clear. The goal should be as clear as possible.
You mentioned an excellent point about clarity and communication, and it actually gives me a great opportunity to put you on the spot and to try and think about a very exciting topic that has to do with your current work. As you told me before our conversation, you're currently working on a new book, which I'm sure would be excellent, and I'm sure it would be of great interest to our audience. So, given that we have a lot of listeners, both in China and outside, how could you introduce your current book to them, and how could you explain to them the idea of the book and its main significance?
So it's a book talking about Chinese consumers nowadays. So the goal is to give my audience a picture, a photography, a screenshot, or let's say, of what Chinese consumers are right now, and what are their behaviors in certain sectors. Like each chapter of the book is dedicated to a specific consumer area, like food and beverages, beauty and cosmetics, free time, including, for example, traveling, tourism, fashion, of course. So these are the topics, and the goal or the audience I have in mind is it's not just one. So from one side, I would like to talk to those people that are interested in learning more about how Chinese consumers behave. For personal reasons, like for students, that could be like students, university students, or people that would like to travel, young people that want to go to China for a certain period of their life, and so on. On the other side, I'm trying to talk with those companies that have not approached the Chinese market yet, and so that would like to try to reach like certain consumer areas, so to give them an idea of what Chinese consumers are. And to be honest, I've noticed that in Italy, especially probably also in the area that I live here, sometimes there are some misconceptions still about Chinese consumers and China, just because people do not know. It's a matter of access to different information, and of course, sometimes we access to the information we are interested or passionate about. So I'm trying, I hope also to present the book here in Italy, here and there, and to increase the curiosity, at least of some people, of what is happening in China right now. Because sometimes I make, like, while I was writing the book, I made like this comparison, if helpful. I think that some Chinese people that live here could be compared to some Italian Americans that are living in the States, that are still like very traditional, very old, and they have a they have a different perceptions of the Chinese that are currently living, let's say, in the modern China, I would say, especially because many of them have not come back for a long time, and so on. So the perceptions of the Italian people of China is surely influenced by like this group of Chinese we see here, although of course we see some changes as well, but I think there is room for understanding more and for try to fight those stereotypes that sometimes, not always, but are still on place, I think.
That's a fascinating comparison, and there's definitely a lot of cross-cultural parallels that I think more people should really think about. So you're making an excellent point there. But when you think about it from a more practical, hands-on perspective, if you would be talking to, let's say, companies that haven't entered China yet, or companies that are there but are thinking of ways to adjust their strategy, what would you say are some of the main challenges and some of the main opportunities for Italian companies in the Chinese market, and perhaps even for European companies more broadly as well?
So it's different. The context is very different from a few years ago. Nowadays there are more. So the companies that move to China must be, I think, like more equipped than before. Some sectors are still, I think, offer opportunities, especially in, I think, in the fast-moving and consumer good industry, in the beauty industry, home furnishing, tourism, home decor, and like these consumer products, fashion industry. But what is certain is that you have to offer nowadays a premium product to Chinese people, and you have to demonstrate to be able to understand them, to talk to them. So Guochao is, one of the main aspects that, for people that study China, it has become, something, you know perfectly what it is, and we talk about this often. But maybe it's not so obvious for other for other companies trying to export their goods in China. I think that the biggest challenge nowadays, especially if you go digital, and you must go digital nowadays, is to capture the attention of some segments of consumers. So in this case, for example, doing market research is extremely important, because it's better to know in advance which target you want to reach and how. So that you know exactly where to go. And of course, you have to compete with many local brands. So if you do not capture the attention of the consumers or the establishment, your interest in a short amount of time, the risk of not attracting their attention may be higher. So this is a challenge. The other thing is that to try to communicate with them, sometimes also adjusting your brand name. So, for example, there are some companies here in Italy, some names are easy to pronounce, also in Chinese, others are extremely difficult. So in that case, you might think of changing your name or adjusting. Although, the most traditional companies are not willing to go through these types of changes. But we have to admit that, as for us it's difficult to pronounce, some Chinese names and to make mistakes, is of course true the opposite. So if you have I don't want to make too many examples here, but if your name is not even readable it's more the cognitive effort they have to know to do for memorizing it or for pronouncing. So you can be easily forgotten.
This is very, very insightful and practical, and you're truly an expert, one of the leading global expert on Chinese consumers today. So I'd like to, of course, take that opportunity and ask you one or two follow-up questions on that. If you think about Chinese consumers, from your perspective and expertise, what do you think are the key characteristics that, let's say, an international company, whether Western or from another region, should keep in mind when they're thinking about their product design, their marketing, their brand strategy? What are the important things to know about the Chinese consumer today?
So depends on this is on the target you want to reach, depends on the types of products, but there are many aspects. I think that doing a good market research here would be extremely helpful. So recently, of course, as I mentioned, the guochao element is important. So offering them a mix of tradition and innovation at the same time. And this is probably not easy to do, but very important. And in one of my papers, I claim that, for example, the success of some Swiss brands in China is because they have highly innovative product or premium product, if we think about chocolate or watches or air purifiers even. But at the same time, they have like the tradition, their own tradition, and they can communicate this. So build your story, and so the storytelling is as a marketing strategy is extremely also is another paramount aspect. So companies should be, European or Western companies should be able should work a lot on the storytelling, trying to build a bridge between us and them, which I hope, I believe like in these bridges across cultures that still keep the communication channels open and favor like mutual understanding. So I think this is very important. And on another side, I can tell you that consumers, especially families or young adults, are very practical. So your product must be really respond to a need, which is obvious. When you're in consumer, needs are class number one, consumer needs. But it's really important for how can you make their life easier with your product. And we can see here, so there are many Chinese products that got imported here that actually they try always to respond to need. So there are now some, the Alibaba is here. So if you look also at how the Chinese communicate their products, the communication is also always focused on, at least for some, of course in some sectors, for some consumer goods, how to solve a product, how can I make your life easier and more practical. And sometimes it's interesting because too much practicality when Chinese companies are trying to export their products here is not sometimes we are not ready. Sometimes in Italy to be too practical, or they have more needs than we have. I think Chinese consumers have more needs than Western people have. We are more traditional, slow. We got things so. While in China, it's they get very excited if you can solve a problem for them. I think about from the technology products especially. And the other thing is that Chinese consumers are in the healthcare or beauty sector now. The supplements are very like vitamins and supplements. It's a very it's a prominent and growing field. They look at data, so it's very important to support. If you're going to export like these types of products, they want to have the results. So you have to tell them the results. You have to be willing to share the research data, the technical aspects, the ingredients. So they are very attentive. I think they are attentive consumers, especially, to be honest, because they experience in China some fraud. Fraud and problems related to security, food security, and safety, hazardous product safety. They know it very well now. In China, they experience obviously in a market that grow. Whose economy grow at a certain level, of course. The safety hazards and happens. So since they know that, they are very careful about these aspects, and they know how to look for the information. So these are all aspects you should pay attention to when moving to China.
These are really fantastic insights, and they're very, very practical, and hopefully some members of our audience are going to really make use of them if they're looking actively into entering the Chinese market. And as we approach now almost the end of our conversation, let's think a little bit about the future, about ongoing trends in consumer behavior or branding at large. What do you think are some of the big emerging trends or challenges that you foresee in the field of branding? What are perhaps some of the skills that marketers and researchers need to learn, or some of the strategic considerations that you think are gonna be essential in the next 5 to 10 years? So, what's your take on the future of consumer behavior, marketing, and branding?
Yes, well, this is a very demanding question. There are many ways to answer it. So from one side, I still believe that market research approaches, even the traditional ones, can still remain alive despite all the artificial intelligence transformation we are going through. Although, of course, there are new challenges that are emerging. So marketers, for sure, they have to adapt to these evolving digital technologies by learning how to use new platforms, learning how to perhaps include in their insights, in their methodology also tools coming from the artificial intelligence, and also regarding the social media nowadays require a continuing monitoring. So especially I can tell this to young people. Also, I have colleagues that worked in this sector. So you cannot just, if you take a social media marketing course or master nowadays, you have to know that the skill you're going to learn during the course probably won't be the skills that you need when they finished. And it's hard to accept this, but you have to keep on understanding, what are the trends. So probably as a professional, you might want really to specialize into something and become an expert into something very specific, and to learn how to use, the new tools, and make yourself let's say a middleman, an intermediary, between the companies or traditional brands company and the new technologies and new people. So this is of course important. Then also we have the sustainability issues, and the consumers are paying more and more attention to sustainable issues, to environment. Many are willing to pay an extra price for products that are certified for the environment, that are sustainable. This is true also in China, by the way. Still, an emerging trend, but it's important. And so companies, for example, are certifying themselves with international standards, certification standards. We're also considering these the interactive market research. So this is very important. Consumers are becoming more and more sophisticated, so it's very important to work on brand reputation and the brand perception. So monitoring, because the changes of course can happen very, very fast, and small mistakes can become viral in a few hours maybe. And this can have a huge impact on this. So probably also a risk management teams that is able to respond to these sudden challenges might be also desired nowadays. And so I think, or maybe the different ways we look for information. So we look for videos, we look for voices. So these new trends to explore. So make sure your companies can be you can found your company also through images, voices, so curate your brand communication as much as you can, and pay attention to the details. Yes, and then for the rest, we'll see. Of course, the classical apps, the digital marketing, it's changing our lives every day. So, although, of course, the offline strategies should not be completely abandoned. Absolutely not. I think that many consumers, at least from my latest research also in China, are still pay attention to traditional offline settings, and they like to do that. So it should be a good mixture of them.
That's really an excellent checklist that I think every company should take note of, and they should really follow up on all of these things that are currently changing and that are going to be influencing the future of branding. But of course, as we know, some of our listeners are executives, they're busy people, and they don't have the time to go through the whole list. So if you had just 1 minute to talk to the world's top CEOs and tell them your most essential message, what would it be?
Oh, this is a challenging question. Well, one thing that I can tell also from my experience of the Shanjiatong Liverpool University, I was working in a business school. Maybe one thing that CEOs nowadays should do is always to look for a dialogue with young people, with students, maybe with business schools. And again, try to build this intergenerational bridge. I think from my experience at XJTLU, but also in general, if companies can communicate with universities or professional institutions or other learning centers, I think this would be great. So try to build workshops, invite experts, give lectures to students. I think that also because from one side, I think young people need this to understand how the real world works. But also CEO might gain some inspiring insights from fresh minds, and I think this could be. So also try to establish more collaboration between the academia and the private sector. Yes, I think this. We used to do this a lot at XJTLU. I know, of course, some business schools do it. It's a matter of daily lives. But I hope this could become broader also in other public universities or other universities in many sectors. To build solid bridge with practitioners and young students.
That's truly a future-oriented vision and a tip that every CEO should take into account. Francesca, your insights are a true treasure trove that the branding industry should definitely stay tuned on and pay attention to. And finally, before I let you go, are we going to see you back in China soon? I'm sure that our audience is looking forward to meeting you.
I hope so. Still can tell, but yes, I'm working on it, let's say.
Excellent. Well, we hope to see you here soon. And thank you very much for being with us on the Branding Boardroom.
Thank you, Ivo, for the invitation.